Welcome back to Maker Chat Live. Today we're going to be talking about ventriloquism with the one and only Landon Harvey. Stick around. All right, and welcome to the show, Mr. Landon Harvey. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good. I'm so glad you could come on because we've been friends for a while, and what I love is seeing all the different things that you make, which are your amazing puppets. Do you have any with you now that you can kind of show us?
Yeah, I've got some things I'm working on and some things that are finished. Here's a jackalope character that I have over here. Finished him a few months back, and I actually used him in one of your, I think it was your World Puppetry Day video. This is Jackie.
That's right. Yeah, you were a part of that. That's Jackie. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is Jackie, and he's a jackalope. Introduce yourself. My name's Jackie, and I'm a jackalope. Right. From Wyoming. Right. Wyoming. Really yeah. It's great. Yeah. And, so I created this guy. The idea behind him was I've never seen a ventriloquist use a jackalope. I think it's a funny idea for a character. And so I was talking with my friend Bob Rumba, and we kind of created this little guy. He was based off of Bugs Bunny, Briar Rabbit, and some other cartoon rabbit. And so I drew him up, and I built him. I think it took me a couple weeks. And I'm constantly evolving my style. These are temporary antlers. They are? Sure. Okay.
He's quite famous on TikTok.
Yeah, he's doing well. It's fun. What I've noticed is being on TikTok is that I'm able to try out some of my characters on there and to see how the youth responds to them, which is neat. And I didn't realize that I could do that until I had been on TikTok for a couple of months.
Yeah, TikTok is one of those interesting things. I was really, really into it for a couple months back toward the end of 2019. Mm-hmm. But I found it is great as a playground. That's how I was using it. Experimenting, testing things out, and it's just really fun. I haven't been on it as much lately. I'm hoping to get back into it. But, with the way the world is right now, I feel like I'm being pulled digitally in every direction right now. So
yeah, I totally get
that. My TikTok has been floundering a little bit. But is there anything that you're working on right now?
Sure, yeah. I'll set you down. Okay. And then down over here. I have got a few different projects because I like to kind of jump from project to project. I'm rebuilding. I have a zombie character. And I'm also, I was going to start working on a bunch of puppets for the ventriloquist convention, but it just got canceled today. So my gears are kind of,
When was it
turning? In July.
Oh, in July. Was that Vent Haven or was that something?
Yeah, it's Vent Haven, the Vent Haven International Ventriloquist Convention.
Yeah, where is that? Is that in Nevada?
It's in, I think, Hebron, Kentucky.
Oh, is it always in the same spot, or is it moving?
Yeah, it's always in the same spot because of the museum.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's too bad.
It's I've got a bunch of scribblings and ideas for puppets, so I'll work on those throughout the next year, and hopefully we'll have it next year. And I'll have 2 tables worth of puppets that I'll be selling. But here's a zombie character that I was building. His name's Bill, and he's in my show. He's a character that I just added, and I built his head, and then I realized that it was too small. Because for my performance of ventriloquism, I have to have bigger puppets because I like the way that they're kind of like my size and they compete with me on stage, and it makes me different from other ventriloquists who typically have smaller characters. So I took this head idea and I rebuilt it, and now I have this one.
We were talking with, I don't know if you caught the Maker Chat Live we did with Derek Lux a couple weeks ago, because he does a lot of bigger puppets as well, because he does a lot of stage performances, and that's what we were talking about, how not only is it help for them to be bigger, because in they were also interacting with real people, so for scale for one thing, and as well as just kind of exaggerating a lot of the features in the same way that you would stage makeup, so it picks up from a distance better for stage performers like yourself.
Sure, and it's difficult for me because as a builder, I want to build stuff bigger because I'm used to performing with it, where I have bigger puppets. Here's the actual other head.
We use the word maker here, not builder. Maker.
Okay, maker. And as a maker, I want to build make for the ventriloquists the same puppet sizes that I do for myself, but I've had to make smaller puppets because that's what they're used to. So I keep the bigger characters for myself. But you can see the difference. Look, there's this one's obviously not covered, but this one's so fairly larger than the initial one over here in foam.
So is that one another prototype? Because I thought Bill's already an existing character for you, isn't he?
He is. I rebuilt him because I initially had him built by Josh at the dummy shop, and I love the look, but I wanted it to be exaggerated more. And so there was a cartoon by Jordan something from the Loud House, and he had done some beautiful zombies, and I bought the one of the prints from him, and this is the new design is partially inspired by that, where it's got the taller cheekbones, and it'll have more exaggerated features. So it'll also have bigger eyes, and of course that the rotting flesh, I just made that bigger, so he'll be goofier and from afar, and also look more coherent with designs like Jackie, which is my jackalope character, and Mervin, and some of my other characters that I use on stage.
Yeah, that's great. Again, just because I'm a little confused, because do you have Bill with you, the one that you've been using in your other videos?
I do. He's in a case though, so he's not out.
Okay. Yeah. Was that the one that was made by the other company? Yes, and they do great work. They built
Edna, Doorknocker, Darcy, Lynn's old lady.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And they build. They're always at convention. Jet and I don't think Josh goes to convention, but Jet's always there, and she has around 50 puppets that she builds, and she does absolutely great work and super neat and fun and colorful character designs.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about your process, because it seems like for the most part that you do an additive foam fabrication. Is that your go-to style that you use?
Yeah, primarily.
Yeah. So how do you, let's walk us through your process. How do you usually start? Do you start with a sketch?
Oh yeah, definitely. Whether it's a new character for my show, which I'm constantly trying different stuff, or if I'm building for a client, I'll usually start with a sketch. I built a Bernie Sanders puppet for Terry Fader, and the only reason why I built that was because, yeah, there it is. He had purchased this other old man character from me, and he had talked to me about using it in a bit with as it playing Bernie Sanders, and I asked him if I could just build him a custom Bernie Sanders, because while it could be played off as Bernie Sanders, it didn't look. I didn't want it to be my representation of Bernie to the public, because I wanted to really show my ability as a builder. So that night, this was when my dad and I were in Vegas, and we were backstage with Terry, and he told us that. So that night, I did a few sketches from my hotel room, and then I showed them to him the next day, and he said, great, and he approved him, and I started building when I got back home.
That's amazing. Terry is amazing.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
In so many ways, and a lot of people might know him as a performer, and I've been lucky enough to have a couple interactions with him on the Puppeteers podcast. We interviewed him. We interviewed him live when he came locally here to Buffalo, Niagara Falls, to do a show, and we got to do a little behind the scenes interview and stuff. And he's just so genuine and so nice and so transparent with everything, and just such a positive guy. So definitely check. I recommend everyone check out his work. And even if you're not in the puppets that much and you're still listening to this, he's just a funny, hilarious entertainer. You will definitely like it.
And coming from a maker standpoint, he's so giving and allowing the maker to just go with the idea. I mean, he'll give you, he'll tell you if he doesn't like something or if he does, but he's very accepting into the creative process, which is really neat. He's a super easy client to work for.
Yeah, from the standpoint alone of how many different makers and builders he works with, because I know when he was rattling off a whole bunch of them when we talked to him before. A couple that stick out is Chance Wolf, and of course Axtel, and I know you have built from him as well.
Keith Lovick is in Washington. He's done some stuff for him as well.
But yeah, just the fact that he's willing to dip his toes into so many different companies and builders and makers is just it's just awesome. Yeah. But again, back to your work. So walk us through your process a little more.
Sure. So I usually start with an initial sketch. Sometimes I have to, I'll do a bunch of different renderings from the side profile to the front profile. If I'm building for a client, I usually ask them what their ideas for the character and the performance. If they have some adjectives that describe the character, so that can kind of help me in building certain cheeks. If it's a happy character, if it's grumpy, whatever. sometimes the client will come to me and say, I want this, but I really don't know what I want. So it'll kind of be on me to create a few different options for them to go to. Yeah. And I really just go from there. I do mechs sometimes on my puppets. I've been experimenting with some new stuff, but nothing to the extent of what you've done, Adam, which is just amazing with your Baby Yoda.
Do you have any of your mechs or mech puppets with you by any chance?
I've got this guy down here. Yeah, I've got this guy down here, and he's a work in progress because I've it's like so busy. Classes went online, and so I've been taken up with that. But here's this. This is a Bigfoot character.
Yeah.
I'm making, and he's really.
Yeah, I'll put an overlay in now too. That this is part of. Yeah. So is this how recent is this photo? You just sent this to me today, but.
That's today.
Oh, that is today too. Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly recent. I've got the body over here. The body is practically finished. He needs some. Let's see if we can get that better in there. Yeah. He needs some toenails.
That's a big belly button.
Yeah, it's he'll pull.
It's almost like another mouth.
Yeah, it's hollow, so you can pull props out of it.
Yeah.
Which is another gimmick that
almost like a little I almost said raccoon. No, a kangaroo pouch, right?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So I've been experimenting with springs and stuff, and I have to weight this so the eye moves. But I've been having a lot of fun.
Great. Is it gonna be one eye that does that, or both eyes?
Just one, just the one eye.
Just the one eye look to the side. That's great.
Yeah, which will give it some comedy there. And of course,
people are wondering now. Can you tell us a little bit about how those are working? We can't see through that other eye.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I don't have a top mouth grip yet, but this is basically just a swivel right here. Let's see if we can see it. A swivel that this eye pivots on, and then this is there's a spring that goes up to his head, and this piece of foam covers it. But I used a nut and a washer to secure that in place. So the unibrow, which is right here, if you can see, when you pull that down, and if I didn't have this eye here, it would be a lot more dramatic. But it's still you get some movement out of there. When you pull it down, it has an automatic return.
That's nice. Can you show us from the inside again, from the back, with the way you were going to go?
Yeah. Show.
Get a good look.
See if we can get that. So right here is what I'm pulling down on for the unibrow.
Are you able to pull down on it through the eye a little bit?
Yeah, I can do that.
See the motion? You're probably wondering.
Let's see. Let's see if we can get that. There we go. Okay.
There you go.
So you can see that spring and the return on that.
Yeah. So are those on each end? Let me bring up my camera so you can see. On each end, where the wires come out of the head, are they actually connected in the middle, or are they just free form, and then there's just fabric and foam in between?
I have, So basically, what I did was I have them about to here, and then I've got tubing covered in them, so that holds them together as their main structure, and then I've got, I think I did a 1/2-inch foam, and then I'll probably take fabric and then actually attach that onto here. I'm not sure because I haven't sewed any of the hair on yet because you have to I have to get the eyes in first. But it's all a process. But he's kind of inspired by the Bigfoot character from a Goofy movie.
Oh, I remember a Goofy movie. I don't remember a big.
A little bit. I love their they're out in the woods camping, and they encounter this Bigfoot, and I loved the comical tooth. So I don't know if you can see that very well. He's got this tooth that's just got some yellowing on it and some lines, and it really plays well from afar and under stage lights. So then of course you got the uvula and the tongue in there and all that other stuff. So he's in development. And what I've been doing, you mentioned TikTok earlier, is I'll show my progress every now and then, because what I've seen is people like to be part of the story and part of the creation. So I always get people when I go on my lives that ask, where's the Bigfoot character and how's that going? So
that's really beautiful. Hold him up one more time, just like this, almost like you'd be performing.
Sure, let me put his hair on for you.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
I don't know. That might be back.
No, that's beautiful. What I love about it is it's so exaggerated.
Yeah,
it's not even like from the angle of the mouth being crooked, but it looks like it's on accident, where that definitely looks like it's hard to make for some people to make things not symmetrical on purpose. And
and I did that on purpose, and which is interesting that you bring that up, because I wanted there to be that single tooth there, but also I had heard Jeff Dunham, who is a famous ventriloquist, but he also builds all of his own stuff, and he was talking about how he builds dummies asymmetrically because that's how people's faces are in real life. And I just butchered his statement. He said it much more beautifully on his live than how I could have even said it just now. But he was talking about how he sculpts them asymmetrically, and I've done some sculpting, but even in sculpting foam or patterning foam over for the lip, I tried to add that little characteristic in there, which will look even better.
Is quite the artist, and actually, we reached out to him for the Puppeteers podcast about a year ago, trying to get him on. And
he's a hard man to get a hold of.
He's hard to get a hold. We got a hold of his publicist, but they're like, "Oh, he's not touring near you, so it doesn't make sense to promote it." Like, that's not really, our podcast isn't a local podcast, but we get what you mean. But but what I'm so inspired by him as a artist and as a maker is that he is truly, in so many ways. Now, I know he has a lot of help in other ways, but in so many ways he is kind of a one-man show too, in that he does design and build and write and perform. Where that it's rare to really have someone at that level that still builds their own stuff. I think does that sound consistent?
I know a few people that do, but it's hard to, I can't imagine performing. I guess he's just got certain weeks that he takes off from doing his shows that he's able to set aside, but he's constantly trying new stuff and adding new characters, which is amazing too. But yeah, he if you tune in for his lives on YouTube or Facebook, he's kind of showing the creation between his for his newest character, which is like this Twitter troll. And the guy that did, oh my gosh, his name escapes me, but he did the artwork for Mad Magazine, and he does the designs for Jeff. Jeff will reach out to him and he'll say, I'm looking for this type of character. I'm looking to create this. Can you draw me like 5 sketches of it? And so the guy will do a few different designs. Jeff will pick the one that he likes the most, and he'll create that in a 3-dimensional clay sculpt, which is
wow, that's
truly neat.
Yeah, I've been following some of those live streams, and they've been so cool. And it's he's just so amazing. It's just so great. He's a big inspiration to me too. I'd love to talk to him sometime on something. But that's great. Yeah, I was looking at one of your. Did we bring this one up yet? Yeah, that we did. There was, I think, there's one more that. That's Bill from behind the scenes. That's right.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, this is your performing your performance with your characters, right?
Yes.
About that?
Yeah, so I perform when I'm not doing shows. I build and vice versa. So that was at a church show that was a couple hours from here. I actually stayed over with my grandparents, got to see them, and then went to do that show. But that was with my character Mervyn Young. He's in another character that I built, and that was a fun show.
That's awesome. How long have you been performing for?
The past few years. I think I started as a senior in high school because I was so worried about starting because I didn't want to start and be bad, but that's how we all have to start. And so, whether you're a maker or a performer or in anything, you have to start and progress from there. And that's kind of what inspires me too to build, is that I want to be the best I can be, and I don't want my age to be parallel to my ability to build.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
19. Okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, your work is very impressive for 19, and it's
Thank you.
Seems like I'm sure it's developed a lot over the years as well. And you mentioned you're going to school too. Where are you going to school?
I go to a local community college.
Okay, is that for business?
Yeah, it is for business.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's very smart to get into.
It's great. It's all here. I'm able to do my shows on the weekends or during the weekdays, and I take the occasional order as it comes in, and it's fun.
Yeah. Let me talk about that now too. With your commissions that you do, how do you go about pricing your work?
It depends on what it depends on what it is, and that's a great question because I've had a lot of time to think about this lately. And I think that my commissions are going to be generally more expensive than the work I sell at convention. just because what I sell at convention is the goofy and weird stuff I want to build.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sell an idea to someone when the general public is used to using like the cheeky boy figure or the old man stereotype puppet. So I've built a bunch of different stuff. I built a cat. You guys can find this on my Facebook or I have a website, theoriginaldummy.com. But I've built a teenager with braces, a chubby teenager with braces named Dewey the Dweeb. I built a bunch of different stuff. But in terms of pricing, I have a ballpark figure that that I've kind of okay, if I'm going to build for this person, it'll be this much. And I just put more of a higher level of detail into it. Mm-hmm. Is basically how which is difficult because I'm more of an artist than I am just a puppet builder. So I don't want to build for just anyone. But then at the same time, it's like I'm a college kid and I need money. So I'm like,
my language, man. My language.
So I'm like, sure, I'll build this for you for this amount, for this price, and it'll be similar to having it built by these builders. But I won't have as much detail or this or that, and you'll get it. And my turnaround time is pretty quick. I can build something within a few days to a week if it's a simple project. Yeah. So.
Well, one thing that I love about what you're saying too is let me start it this way: is I know when people are newer builders, they have that passion and that hunger to just do it, which is part of why a lot of beginners, for multiple reasons, have their prices pretty low. First of all, they're starting off. And secondly, they're hungry for the work. And when you're hungry for the work, it's hard to charge as much because it's a supply and demand thing. So, So has your prices evolved much over the couple of years that you've been building and selling your puppets?
Sure, definitely. As a performer, it's been a real treat to be able to be a performer and a puppet builder at the same time because I know I'm able to build my puppets with a higher level of attention to detail in the grips or the certain aspects or gimmicks used in the performance of ventriloquism, so I can understand where my client is coming from. Yeah, so of course, my prices have gone up over the years. I've gotten better. I've learned how to do new things. I've been able to. I try to make every puppet its own thing, so it's not all the same. I don't have one repetitive pattern that I build off of. Yeah, which has been difficult. But if you look at, there's a photo somewhere of my table at the last time I was at the ventriloquist convention, and everything was all different sizes and shapes and different head stuff. I had like a creature from the Black Lagoon puppet that was goofy looking, and I had an old lady, but it's all different. And because I don't want to feel like I have to resort back to the same pattern because of that whole artist mentality. And I like to you have to try new stuff and make mock-ups and things of that nature. So
no, you're absolutely right. With pricing, it can be so goofy because one thing I like to compare it to is like buying a car. Okay, if you go to a car dealership, you don't say how much is a car, because the range is like what $16,000 to $100,000 or more, which is quite a range, right? Yeah. So my starting thing is like the same thing that they ask you at the car dealership. What is your budget? Okay, because that same dealer, they can sell you a $16,000 car, or they can sell you a $100,000 car. It's going to be a very different car. Right. Same thing with a puppet. Like if you only have, like if your budget is $3,000 for a puppet, that's going to be a certain type of puppet. But if you have, $6,000 for a puppet, you're going to use different materials. You're going to use different techniques. You're going to be able to do more intricate design work that takes more time. So, I mean, for a lot of times for me, the starting point is what's your budget?
Well, this is interesting because you opened up a whole new topic of discussion, which is for puppet, because you have ventriloquists and then you have puppeteers. For puppeteers wanting to go and get a quality custom made puppet, is it around $3,000? Is it that expensive for something like that? If you were to go to you're a decent builder, from what you've seen in the market.
Well, probably about $3,000 for commercial work is probably about the minimum you would do. Studios, like if you were to go to I'm definitely ballparking here, but like for places like Henson or Animax and places like that, for a simple basic puppet, you're looking at probably about 15 grand.
Yeah.
You know,
that's interesting.
Those are studios, and they take a whole workshop of people that delegate. One person does the foam, one person does the fabric, one person does the assembly.
They've got
it's different when you're
each assigned various tasks. Sure.
Yeah, when you're individual artist, it's different.
If you had one person that was like, they just enjoyed puppeteering and they wanted to, like, it's like their main hobby and they wanted to get a quality puppet, would it cost around that? Like from a puppeteer?
It kind of depends on the builder. It depends on the person too. I mean, because I work a lot of the same way you work. Like, I'm not going to just take a gig just because I don't take all the gigs. I'm very selective with what I take. A lot of times how it's going to be used is a big factor in whether or not I will take that gig. If it's going to be for a commercial, or if it's going to be for theater use, or for something else. If people all the time, I just always wanted a puppet, and it's like I'm not really in
but this is interesting because what I'm familiar with in the ventriloquist community is ventriloquist. You have the ventriloquist soft puppet, and then you have the traditional hard figure, and the hard figures are anywhere from $2,000 to up, and they just go up. But the soft puppets are anywhere from a couple $100 to maybe $800. I mean, it's not that much of a range. So like what I've heard from you and from other people too is that it typically costs more, and I know it varies, but if you're a puppeteer, it'll cost more to get a quality puppet for stage.
My guess is, in my opinion, I should say that's because of how they're used. Generally, if I'm selling a puppet to a theater or for stage work, I'm not going to usually be able to get that much. Okay, but if it's going to be used for commercial work or for video work, you can get those more prime rates, and that may sound a little shady to some people, but that's how it is in a lot of industries as well, even graphic design. If I'm going to do this, I have a whole YouTube video that I did on pricing art on my channel, and like if you're a graphic design artist, if you're doing it for the ice cream shop at the corner, you're probably just going to charge $100 or $200. If you're doing it for a big company like Pepsi, like you're talking like $30,000 you're going to get for it because of how it's going to be used and the return they can get back on it.
My favorite thing is when the starter puppet maker or puppet builder will ask, hey, what do you think I should price my work at? And then you wait for them to progress throughout a year, and then they'll look back and go, what was I even doing, even asking that question?
Yeah.
And I think we've all done that, but
that's another thing too. People ask me, how much do your puppets cost? And I say the same. I say I don't have a price. I do custom quotes based on the design, budget, and how much time. I mean, time as in not time that takes me to build it. That's based on the design, how fast they need it. Whether
this is another
month, a year.
Yeah, this is another thing. And I can't go into depth a lot about it, but I finished a few projects for Terry Fader, and this was actually before the virus impacted everything, but he had talked about rights. So rights are a whole nother thing that go into.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point that I sometimes forget to make.
Sometimes you have the puppet price and then you have the rights, which is being able to use it for whatever you want and owning the character design and everything. And that'll complicate it even further.
How you've arranged that with Terry?
Yeah, so basically
he needs to have the rights for anything.
Yes, I think he owns the rights to everything that he performs. So on these characters that I built for him, that I assume he'll add them to the show once this all blows over. But the rights are generally the same cost. No matter what puppet builder you go to that deals in ventriloquism. So like if you went to, I don't know, there's 3 or 4 of ventriloquist puppet builders. Myself, Barry Gordimer, Jet from the Dummy Shop, Marianne Taylor, and then we all kind of charge around the same thing for rights, so it doesn't impact,
Yeah.
So that's not another variable.
You have to shopping between you guys for that.
Right. Exactly. But of course you also have to say, if you're charging, you can't charge Terry Fader, you can't charge someone what you would charge Terry Fader if they're a starter level ventriloquist. You know, you're going to charge them maybe $400 or $300 for the rights versus whatever you would charge, you know, a seasoned performer that is, you know, making what Terry makes and performing.
Some people that might sound like, well, if it's the same thing, if same like type of product, why would it be different? But again, that's common in licensing of things like music alone, you know.
But if
you're a big theater, you pay a lot of money for rights for music. If you're just a smaller theater, as a lot of times it's based on the seating capacity for theaters and things like that. And I know it's a little different for rights to a puppet, but it's very similar too.
Well, and also what you said earlier, which is you know, if you're not going to charge someone, you know, if you're going to give someone an extreme discount on the rights, they probably aren't able to afford your best work either. You know, you probably have to make it more simple and not, you know, so that's not necessarily cut corners, but not build it in the full to your full ability is, I guess, how I have to put it. Yeah, which is kind of hard. You know, it hurts sometimes as an artist, but you know.
Yeah, that's why you don't take those ones. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah. Well, because pricing again, it's so hard, and it evolves over time for many of those reasons that we were talking about. But yeah, and also the rights too. I mean, from that standpoint alone, even sometimes doing the sketch and the design for somebody is a separate fee. Like even in the same way you said that Jeff Dunham hires someone to do the sketches, like that's not free either, you know. And if you are a one-man shop and you do the designs, you know, even the design process alone, people charge separately for. Now, I don't mean separately as in built into the whole final cost. I mean like, hey, can you do some designs for me for this puppet? And sure, it's going to be X amount of dollars, and then I'll submit to you the designs, and then you can pick one if you like one, and then we can talk about what it's going to cost to build it in real life.
Well, that's great too, because what I found out is sometimes you get clients that are so particular on things. And so, you know, they're like, well, I thought it would be more like this, or I was expecting more like this. And it's just, you know, you have to set some foundation for it. And, you know, I built a puppet for someone that was based off of a sketch that they drew for the idea, which was fine. I was able to do it, but you know, you always have that problem where they're going to resort back to their sketch and go, well, why doesn't it look exactly like my sketch? Well, it's not gonna. It's going to look pretty close. It'll have the same color scheme and it'll have the same, you know, design, but it's a puppet and there's limitations. And, you know, if you're building for the typical everyday ventriloquist, you can't put the same amount of time into it because it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but what I'll say is, again, you are an artist, you know, and it has a little bit of your personal flair in that design. And also, no matter what you charge for yourself, it's not going to be anything compared to a place like Animax, where Animax is a place that specializes in, like, when they do animated characters, it is identical. Okay. Yeah. That's why it costs $100,000 for something, you know. And if you're coming to an individual artist like you who has your own style and flair, and that's what makes you. That's another thing for me too. Is like I asked them like why did they want the puppet beyond just what it's going to be used for. Like if I can tell they don't want a Kreutinger, they just need a puppet. They don't necessarily want a Kreutinger puppet. I send them to somebody else. Because I have other people that maybe do want my work specifically. And like I've said this before, again, that sounds like a little self-congratulatory. That's not why. It's because I only usually do like 3 or 4 commissions a year because I have a separate job and stuff. It's not my main focus. So if I'm only going to do a couple a year, I want to pick the ones that check the most boxes for me as far as my fulfillment as an artist. That's financially, design-wise, how it's going to be billed. And yeah, again, a lot of things that we're talking about today.
Yeah, adding it to your profile on your website or on your, you know, social media. It has to, advance what you do and offer a different.
Someone else someone wants a bear. It's like, oh, well, I just did a bear last month. It's like, I don't want to do another bear. You know?
Right.
Switch it up a little bit.
What's interesting is there are kids that know me as a ventriloquist and a builder, and so they'll contact me wanting a puppet, and they'll say, I love your designs because they're so original and they're so different from what the other puppet builders do and this and that. And then at home they've got like they've got characters that they bought from the other puppet builders that they're doing nothing with. And I was like that when I was younger too, but and that goes into also not just puppet building, but being able to create a character that's unique to you and your performance, and not just buying the coolest puppet that comes out. Because you go to the convention and these dealers are stocked with beautiful artwork, and it's easy to just go left and right and buy everything.
It's so funny to hear that, because that is so not something that I normally hear in puppetry, but it's not surprised to hear in ventriloquism. Because me and you have talked briefly about this in the past, and I want to dig into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, put, not all people, not people in the industry, but a lot of people peripherally put puppetry and ventriloquism kind of in the same basket, Where in my experience, ventriloquisms, from a mindset, from the way that they use their props and tools, they're much closer to magician than puppeteer. Like if puppeteer is here and magician is here, ventriloquist is like here. They're way closer to magician.
I totally agree. Yeah.
And even I think even from a standpoint of the price range as well, because magicians, I mean, obviously with any industry there are high level things, but generally, like magicians, a lot of the stuff is they want to make their own effects, or if you look at magic items, like they're kind of cheap and expensive. Like they're kind of expensive. They're expensive for what it is, and you're getting usually kind of like a cheap product, unless of course it's something custom made by like Chance Wolf or something.
Well, that's another interesting point is kind of with puppet making, is that you can have something like where it's a magic trick that everyone knows, but you can have it customized.
Yes.
Which is also what you can do with a puppet. Have a puppet character where you can take the idea and you can alter it. This kind of applies. I have this old man character Mervyn, and versus him being a curmudgeon and grumpy, he's this ladies man character that flirts with ladies in the audience when I perform, and he's like the head of my show. And I brought this up. He's got these dentures I have to rebuild, and I have to check out your video this summer, because I'm going to use your video on your YouTube. Your teeth video. Yeah, I'd like to build some.
I'm glad you mentioned that. One thing I want to mention about that is in that video, those teeth, which I'm very happy with how they look. They look realistic-ish with a little bit of a cartoony flair. The ones I happen to build were meant to be set together so they don't come apart. And people are like, oh well, how do you do it to make them come apart? It's like, God, just sculpt two of them. That's all you have to do. Like, they want to make a second video for it. Maybe I will sometime. But that's
when you're low on content.
Meant to come in. That goes in his mouth and is meant to be.
There's just little springs. He's got teeth and a toupee. He's trying to look his best for the ladies in the audience, and so he calls the lady up on stage, and she puts his teeth in for him. So they fit in his mouth, and I had to build a few different versions until I got it to where it worked right. But he's actually able to open and close his mouth and actually talk with the teeth in. So he's able to do a few lines.
Fall out so he can lose his dentures.
Well, he doesn't have them to begin with, and then we put him in.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we put him in, and then as the bit progresses, he realizes that it's not going to work out between him and the lady, and he spits him out, and his toupee flies off of his head. So I'm pretty prop heavy. I'm building if you've ever seen Hoarders, you see all these like old women, and they're like they have like the workers in there moving all these papers and boxes around, and they go, I think I found Fluffy, your cat, and it's like flattened. I've been thinking about an idea for having a cat puppet that is her side character. So I have an old lady character, Patty, and she'll have her cat. We pull out of. I've got this false purse it's a purse that I built with a false bottom. So we pull out. It's like a Carrot Top bit. Pull out a bunch of old lady props and stuff that we find. So it's my show's pretty prop heavy.
You bring up something that makes me think of again, kind of comparing magicians to ventriloquists. Whereas I think in a lot of good puppet shows, it is very story based, right? Whereas a lot of magician and ventriloquism, and this isn't like saying that it's better or worse, it's how it's different is what I'm trying to identify, is that a lot of it seems to be based off of jokes and gags rather than truly telling a story.
It depends on who you see, what ventriloquist you're seeing.
Sure.
From talking with Terry, I did an interview with him a few days back. He was talking about how his comedy is more character driven and situational.
Yeah. He compared it to Everyone Loves Raymond, right?
You're right, exactly. And I try to do that where mine is kind of like a sitcom. I've got these characters that belong together and kind of have this thing going back and forth, and it's not necessarily a story because they're not acting anything out like that, but it's more. It's so weird because people could. If you were in my audience, you would say, "Oh yeah, it's a story," but it's really not because it's more of this character driven thing and this relationship between me and the character, and why he's on stage or why they're on stage. So I would totally agree with what you said as well.
Yeah. Well, even just to use Terry as an example, like I saw his show, and I mean, of course, I mean he rotated between maybe 6 puppets or more. Almost like it's its own little vaudeville act. Versus like a lot of times when you see a puppetry thing, even on television or whatever, there's usually a full narrative with a set character, rather than here's the next puppet, here's the next puppet, here's the next puppet.
Sure,
almost like a magic show, and here's the first trick, here's the second trick, and then again a lot of times there's some sort of a narrative through line that connects them all together, but still it's different from puppetry, which is a true story rather than just connecting.
Sure. And I will say, I think the person that does what you're talking about, where they have a narrative and a storyline throughout their performance, is David Strassman. He's a ventriloquist, but his show it's a show, and it's I mean you watch it and there's this arc, and there's a meaning for why the show exists throughout the show, and the characters versus it just being here's the character and here's the comedy or here's the setup, the punch. There's this driving factor, whether it's they're trying to find his teddy bear character that's left, or whatever the thing is, and that's how he writes, which makes it easier for him probably to decide what characters he's going to use in the show and how he wants the comedy to be driven, because he knows how the characters would respond when he's trying to figure out where the teddy bear went, or whatever the
I've actually been familiar with him for years because I actually have a couple of his DVDs, and you're right, it's a full theatrical experience that is much closer to kind of what I was talking about, what you would see in a traditional puppet show, where it's a full story straight through. The one that sticks out the most is with his alien puppet that he had. Is that right? Is that, what's his name? Is it Marvin or something like that?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but anyways, beautiful puppet, beautiful show. I mean, what a brilliant man he is, and that was just that's just fantastic. That's great. That's right. Okay, we have had a couple questions here, or some of them statements. Here's an interesting one. That's Connie here says that most events don't consider themselves puppeteers. Is that something you would agree with? You think?
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. That's for 2 reasons. They either don't want to be associated with puppeteers, or they can't puppeteer the puppet. So it's probably either one of those or both.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a puppeteer, but when I'm on stage performing, I think I can puppeteer the puppet fairly well, keep it animated.
Yeah. Well, there's a ventriloquist that's I think he's really well known for his manipulation. Is it
Dan Horn?
Dan Horn, yeah. Oh my gosh, I remember seeing a documentary on him years ago, and the manipulation with these puppets was just remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Have you know him? Have you worked with him or talked to him much?
Yeah, I got to meet him the first year of I got to go to the ventriloquist convention, and meeting him was really neat because I've been a fan of his for a while, and I did an interview with him too. It's on my YouTube page, and I got to hear his story and how he decided to use the rods on the soft characters.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I had reached out to him before about being on Puppeteers, but then I think I wasn't able to coordinate it, and then Cam booked a bunch of other stuff. So I do want to get him on too, because I think he's just a legend in the world of ventriloquism. But another thing that I was thinking about is why, especially with you as a performer, why do you make puppets for other people rather than just making them for yourself?
Well, there's the I don't do shows on a regular basis enough for it to become a full-time career yet. So it's my job right now, but I'm also a college student. So the financial aspect of puppet building kind of helps with that. It allows me to, sometimes the puppets are a challenge. I should have sent you this photo. I didn't, but it's all on my Instagram or my website, the original dummy. But I built a puppet for John Peasy, and he wanted this alien character with moving eyebrows, and he wanted the stomach to be its brain to be in the stomach, and so the stomach could light up different colors based on the emotions the alien was feeling, and that was the whole. He had already written the bit. He was looking for the person to build the puppet. And he had gone to other puppet builders in the Vent community, and no one wanted to do it because he's very particular about what he wants done, and he's kind of hard to work with. And I took it as a challenge, and I ended up building something that he's been using in his work for him. So sometimes it's because it's a challenge. Sometimes it's because it's an escape for me. Sometimes I've been doing too many shows, or I have been focused too much on schoolwork, and being able to puppet build is therapeutic for me, being able to sew and craft these characters. Sometimes it's the person I'm building for, because I've gotten to build for some pretty awesome people, and I have a goal to build for the top ventriloquists in today's market, and that's still something that I aim for. So I have a few different reasons on why I build for people other than myself, but I'm trying to divorce the style of puppet I build for other people than what I build for myself, if that makes sense. Which was advised to me by my friend Jeff Goltz, which is a great tip, and I've been trying to figure out how to do that.
No, that's really great. No, those are great points, huh?
Yeah.
What just to get back into some of the maker aspects of it a little bit too, I want to talk a little bit about materials that you use. What are your go-to materials that you use for a typical build?
Typically, I use Antron fleece.
Oh, really? Is it? Yeah. Okay. Where do you?
I get it from Georgia Stage, and I buy it white, and I dye it because I've dyed enough stuff to where I can get it the color that I want it. And oh man, I have got a few fun dye stories. Because sometimes also the places like Puppet Pelts, they have amazing stuff, and I've used them. Sometimes I've gotten stuff from them when I'm in a time crunch. But I think the Barney Sanders puppet, I think that was Puppet Pelts. That was I don't think that was Antron fleece though. That was a different type of fabric that they were offering at the time. But that was the first puppet I used that fabric on, because I liked the way that I could sew it, and I liked the way that it didn't have that shiny Antron look on it. Because I wanted to highlight certain features on him, and it worked really well with that character. But typically, faux fur, I go to Etsy or eBay, or anywhere I can get different types of fur colors and all.
Just for people who are listening, and maybe even for you as well.
Sure.
That other fabric that you're talking about that doesn't have that luster as the other also is actually made by Georgia Stage as well. That's where Puppet Pelts had sourced that material. The difference was the 12 ounce is the stuff that the traditional stuff that people use, and that 13.75 ounce, also known as the 14 ounce fleece, is that other fabric that you're talking about that doesn't have the same luster that you used for Bernie Sanders. So just make sure you look at from any location that you get it, the ounce of the fabric that you're getting.
Yeah, definitely.
And then actually Puppet Pelts has another new one that they I think they had it custom milled, is their polyester fleece, which is really nice too. That's what I'm using for that. I think I mentioned in the last 3 episodes for that Baby Yoda that I'm working on and have to get back to. It's great fabric. It's very different. It's very different, but it is still great, and it's and it won't fade the way other colors and fabrics will as easily, which is great too.
Yeah, you're doing a killer job on that Baby Yoda character. I mean, especially with that fabric, I couldn't imagine. Probably a lot of small stitching and everything there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of small stitching. Actually, I got him right here. I keep bringing him in, and I keep thinking I'm going to get back to work on him, but then he's still always the same at the same level. Here, let me make it full screen for some people to see here. This is all that nylon fleece. Or no, I'm sorry, not the nylon fleece. It's the polyester fleece from Puppet Pelts, which has been really, really nice to work with. Again, you have to be a little bit more particular with the sewing, but you can completely hide your seam as long as you are aware of what's going on. And you know, that's a fun topic that I just want to step on for 1 second, because so many people rely on the fabric for hiding the seams, where it's hiding the seams is just how good of a sewer you are is really the main thing to it, because I can make seams completely invisible in just polar fleece from Joanne fabric. You know, it just becomes easier with some of these other fabrics as well. So people, another thing is too, a lot of people overpick the seams, so they'll have a seam going down it, and then they'll overpick it. Like, no, look, you can't see the seam. You're right, you can't see it, but you can see where it was because there's a big fluffy line there now. You know, that's like having a hole in your yard. Oh, let me get rid of that hole, and then you overfill it like this. Now there's a mound. You can still tell that there's something there that's not supposed to be there. So I would just tell people small, tight as in tight is a term for sewing that means close together. It doesn't mean actually pulling tight. So tight stitches is really the way to go. And you want to do a whip stitch. And people talk about this Henson stitch. I already did a rant on that. We're not going to get back on that. But do you have any other things around you that you wanted to show off too?
Not with me, no.
No, but anyway, you know, it's been so fun to follow all of your work. What I love about it too is there is no shortage of content from Landon Harvey. So you know,
I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you do a little bit of you're everywhere now, especially with your own little. Do you call it a podcast or?
Interviews. Yeah.
Podcast, your interviews, your interviews that you're doing, Landon Live, which has been fun to check out. I've been able to pop in to a couple of them and have been really enjoying them. And again, like I said, no shortage of puppet content on your TikTok and on your Instagram, on your YouTube. Do you have a Facebook page too, right?
Yeah, I've got a Facebook page, Landon Harvey Ventriloquist, and the Facebook group, Landon Live, for anyone wanting to join and see the lives. That's where they all are. I also re-uploaded them on YouTube. So
that's great. So you don't go live on YouTube?
I tried it a few times, but I realized that the people that were tuning in weren't from YouTube, so I just uploaded them on YouTube afterwards.
Yeah, that's nice too. That's great. What is your goal with that? What are you trying to do with that?
Just make connections, meet people. I like hearing people's stories and how they got into it. I'll interview all the ventriloquists I possibly can that are working pros, and I'll go into other types of performance arts. Tomorrow night I'm interviewing Judy Tenuta, who's one of the famous comics. She was a famous comic in the 80s, and she's done some amazing things in her life. So I'm excited to hear her story.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Is there any big projects coming up that you can tell us about?
Oh man, I've got a few character designs that I'll work on probably this summer in preparation for next year's Vinhaven convention, and I'll probably post some stuff on my Facebook and my Instagram. So keep a lookout for that. That's
awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to bring in here one more little thing. Let's see if I can bring it in correctly here. Here it is. This is Landon's Facebook page that you can check out a lot of his work, a lot of his builds, some of his interactions.
So that's my show page. I try to keep my shows and my builds separate. Sometimes people contact me through that page going, "Can I buy a puppet from you?" And it's hard, but my other page is the original dummy. I don't know if that's a page or not on there, but that's where I do my shows, and I post show stuff or videos from TikTok.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. So definitely, I mean, this is probably a good landing page to at least be able to find all of your other
totally.
venues, puppet work, eh, landing through the years too, which is nice. And great. Do you have an actual portfolio formally somewhere that people can check out as well?
If you want to see my puppet work, you can go to theoriginaldummy.com, and I've got a bunch of different photos of my past characters that I've built.
That's
in
all.
The gallery. Yep.
Cool, cool. Is there any final words you want to say to people who would be listening, or anything else you want to point them to?
Sure. Adam, with everything he's been doing with his channel, and if you've seen my stuff, just keep creating. I think the problem is people worry about other people's opinions or the current build that they're working on maybe not being good enough. Keep building. You're going to get better if you keep building, and no matter what it is, keep creating and enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's not going to be.
I want to hang on that for 1 second too, because I feel like a lot of people get discouraged and they go too slow in the beginning because they're aiming too high. They build their first puppet and they're like, I followed along with what you did, and look, it doesn't look like yours does, or it doesn't look good, or I'm not happy with it. Like, what do I do? What do I do? And the answer is never something that they want to hear, but it's make more puppets. You learn by doing. You can't just usually. Not many people in this world can just go out and run a full marathon without doing training, and it's the same type of thing. Especially since with something like building puppets, where there's so many different trades involved in it. If you are a woodworker and then you start building puppets, you're coming to it with a certain mindset that can be very helpful. There's a lot of application to working with wood, with as far as measuring and cutting, that would apply really well to foam work. Okay, especially foam like L200. But if you have a background in sewing, like, there's obvious advantages to that, because there's a lot of fabric work that can be associated with a lot of the puppets that we build. So just making sure you're learning about different trades, practicing as much as you can. And I think my guess is this is with your work as well, but with me, I try to put something into each puppet that I build that's new to me, so I can kind of practice that skill. Like, even with this Baby Yoda puppet, I've done all these mechs before, but I've never put them all into one puppet, which wouldn't maybe necessarily sound that different, but man, it's different to be able to get to mesh together and work. Even with the puppet you were holding up earlier, where you have that eye movement and the brow movement. Actually, just show us with your fingers. What is the formation that's meant to be done with?
I'm still trying to figure it out. And that's why the top grip hasn't. That's why the top grip hasn't been built yet. Because I'm like, do I create two little holes for my fingers, or is it my pinky, or is it this? I have to weight the other eye to see if that's better, and just have that one movement, and then have the other one where it's just a tilt of the head. It's all just experimenting, is what it comes down to.
That's exactly it. Yep. Yeah. And that's what I would tell people to keep doing, is keep experimenting, keep making things, and you will at least have a good time doing it. But anyway, thank you again, Landon, for coming on. Man, this was great. We should do these more often with you, because you're such a great guest.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys check out Landon Harvey's work. He is at Landon Venting everywhere you can find him. And if you're listening to this on audio, make sure you check out there's a video cast for every single one of these episodes. We just launched the YouTube channel for this as well. So the archives are there as well. You can check it out. It actually streams live there as well. And I look forward to the future. Thanks again, Landon.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Bye.